Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, LA? This is Ryan Dyrud with the LA Football Podcast, and support for LAFB is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Guys, I know a lot of you skip past these ads or just ignore them, but this is one that will actually benefit you every single time you use this product. The worst thing you can do is get nicks, cuts, scrapes, gashes, anything to your southern region down below. It's painful. It's gross. You don't want it. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months, that's a year and a half, perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. And even better, you get 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code LAFB. I promise you, your balls will thank you. What's up, Los Angeles? And thank you for tuning in to another edition of the LA Football Podcast here in the Believe Podcast Network, always on LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for all your favorite Los Angeles football teams. Your Rams, your Chargers, your Bruins, and Trojans. We got it all for you on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com. Excited that you're joining me today, riding solo. My man Frost is traveling, and so I just wanted to get a quick episode up. We're going to do fully dedicated to mock drafts. I posted on Twitter yesterday to send me your mock drafts, and I'm going to compare it to my mock draft. And this is pre-free agency. So everything is going to change here in about a week. We're just a week away from the tampering period, starting on Monday the 15th. Free agency officially opens on the 17th when the new league year begins. So a lot of stuff is going to change, but mock draft season, everyone loves doing it. I love doing it. I will say this, starting, I think 2 years back, I do one official mock draft the week of the draft. I don't do a ton written mock draft. Obviously, I'm doing mock drafts now, via our YouTube and podcasts, wherever you do listen to podcasts. But I do a written mock draft the week of the draft. I always do the full first round. I might do more this year just because the Rams don't have a first round pick yet again. So no fun for Rams fans and no fun for me covering the Rams when I can't even have to make a selection. So yeah, if you're looking for a written mock draft for myself, it will be up on LAFBnetwork.com the week of the draft. I just think you need to let free agency settle. We have guys on the LA Football Network that do some throughout the season. So we can keep that going out, it's always fun. And I enjoy editing those and getting those up. But for myself, I'll have an official one up the week of the draft. So just want to get that out there. But this is on the show. We're going to do a few. I'll precursor this. Myself, I did 3 separate mocks on each mock simulator platform, the 3 that I know of, the Draft Network, Pro Football Focus, and Pro Football Network, just because their rankings are so different. So I wanted to kind of get a baseline of where some of these players would go, which is really hard to do because I remember one instance, I believe it was Pro Football Network had Cameron Bynum. He's just one that I remember specifically. Corner for Cal. Went in like the 5th round, I think, in theirs. And in the Draft Network, had I not taken him, which we'll get to in a minute, he would have gone undrafted. But I was still scrolling through. I'm like, what? He's still available? And he would have not been taken had I not. So very different rankings from these 3 sites. So I did all 3. And the ones I got sent to me via Twitter was, an abundance of different ones. Some use the Draft Network, some use Pro Football Focus, some use PFN. So that keeps it fun. And I'm going to just kind of go through it quickly. This is not going to be super deep analysis of each pick because otherwise this will be a 4-hour long show. Just kind of wanted to see what some of you guys think as fans, and then you can see what I think, and we'll just compare and just kind of do it quick and see how you feel about these pre-free agency mock drafts for both the Rams and Chargers. I don't know if I said that, but I'm doing it for both. So we'll just go through it together, kind of pick by pick for each team. Should be fun. We'll see. If you hate it, we won't do it again, but we'll do one of these with Frost later on in the season. I have planned after free agency across our network with LAFB and with Believe, we're going to do a full 32 team, 32 host mock draft. It's going to be a crowded Zoom screen with all of us in there. But that's going to be super fun. I think we'll have a representative for each team. Cause we have, Believe we almost have a show for every team now at this point. And then obviously the LA teams will be represented by us at the LA Football Network. So that'll be fun. We'll get that going closer to the draft after free agency. So as always, the show is brought to you by BetOnline.Ag. If you're a sports bettor, if you like winning money, you got to head to BetOnline.Ag. I've been watching some hockey. Basketball is obviously going. Lakers in a little skid, right? Is that what I heard? I honestly have not been paying attention to basketball at all. Football season ends and the off season begins. That's kind of how it is for me. Every now and then I'll catch some games if I go to a bar or something, which, can't really do right now. Or outdoor TVs or something, I'll see a game on, but I haven't followed basketball at all. College basketball, once March Madness hits, which is a week away, a couple days away. I love March Madness, but I don't really pay attention before. So I kind of am picking blindly on my tournament, but you can go to BetOnline.Ag and bet on all of that. You get a 50% welcome bonus when you sign up today. So if you haven't joined yet, which is shocking if you've been listening to the show for a long time, go join today. BetOnline.Ag, your wagering online casino. All right, let's just jump into this. So I'm going to do something different. If you're listening to me on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, sorry, you want to obviously get the visual here, but if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to do a screen share here and you can see actually all these mock drafts. So let's jump into that. And I'm going to do, let's start with some of the ones that I was sent. Sorry, you can see how cluttered my desktop is there. So yeah, I'm going to just go through, I got a lot here, which is awesome. I'm so appreciative of everyone that, participated. I want to try to get to all yours, but I don't know how much time. I don't want this to be a 3-hour long show. So I'm just going to kind of start and we'll mix and match Chargers and Rams. And then I'll end with mine and then we can compare and say, okay, how do we like how these matched up? So let's start with this. Start with Felix at IV Bolts Fan 760. Thank you, sir, for sending a little shout out for you. So this was your mock draft. Obviously the big need for the Chargers. And again, I don't want to say this every single time, but everything's going to change with free agency because if the Chargers go out and, trade for Orlando Brown and sign side Corey Linsley as a center, obviously these picks are going to change, but hey, as is, this is how we're doing it. So Samuel Cosme at 13. For me, it's a little early for him. I don't know obviously what your board looked like, but I would assume Elijah Vera Tucker was probably available, who's my pick. He's a slam dunk. I'm a little biased since obviously we cover USC also at the LA Football Network, so I got to watch a lot of Elijah Vera Tucker, but I just think he's super versatile. But anyway, Samuel Cosme, not a bad pick by any means. You get the biggest need there, getting a tackle. I just think there may be some other guys, whether it's Christian Darrisaw, Rashawn Slater's probably wasn't available, I would assume. At least with the Draft Network, he was going really early. So yeah, Cosme, not bad. For me, it's just a little early for him, but I don't know what your board looked like. Maybe all the other ones were gone. So Landon Dickinson, I like Landon Dickinson a lot, center from Alabama. Does have a little bit of injury concern, which is obviously not what you want to hear if you're a Chargers fan, and probably not what you want to draft if you're a Chargers fan. But in the second round there, it could be worth the risk if he can come in and, big if he can stay healthy. But he's a very good player and would be a very good center for you or guard, depending where you want to line him up at. Hamilcar Rashad, get the edge in there. Again, most likely Perryman not going to be back, I would assume. So you're rolling with obviously Joe Bosa, one of the best to do it. And then you got Uchenna Nwosu and then whoever else they bring in free agency. So it doesn't hurt, stacking up edge, adding some depth there. Trill Williams, cornerback, like the pick, add more depth. Again, we don't know what's going to happen if they're going to if Chris Harris will be back, which I think he will be. Casey Hayward is another one we don't really know if they end up cutting and moving on. Michael Davis is a free agent, so will he be back? So a lot of question marks at corner that we'll see. But whether they keep all three of those guys or go after someone in free agency, I like Trill. Doesn't hurt adding depth. Marvin Williams, interior defensive line, again, add depth there. They're kind of set right now, obviously, with, Linval Joseph. Jerry Tillery plays in there, but I know he slid outside some. Cortez brought another player. So they have some guys there, obviously can play. Isaac Rochelle going to be, I think, a free agent. I'm missing some Damon Square. They have a lot of players. It's just not knowing what's going to happen, but it's never bad adding depth there. Anthony Schwartz, receiver. I like it. Chris Evans, add another running back to the room. When you have this many picks, a lot of time once you get to these later rounds, you're just adding for depth. So Damar Hamlin, Malcolm Kuntz. Overall, I like this draft a lot. I think you're highlighted by taking 2 offensive linemen, 1 and 2, which I think a lot of Chargers fans will like. I know it's not flashy, but that's the biggest need. And I know Tom Telesco said in his presser yesterday that, they have a lot of other needs and they don't think they're just an offensive line away from, playoff contention or a Super Bowl run. I think if they can stay healthy everywhere else, which is always the biggest if, I think they are an offensive line away from being a playoff contender. If the defense, how they transform within Staley's system, obviously, is a big if. But I just think those players will match up well, and that's obviously their biggest need. But there's obviously other things they can do. So, good draft there. Let's roll through these. We'll do another Chargers one, and then we'll bounce to the Rams. So D's Bolts at Lights 83. All right. It looks like, if I'm correct, you may have used Pro Football Network in this one. I think it looks like that might have been the simulator here. So Aziz Ojulari. Sometimes I try to just say it too fast. Get an edge there at 13. So a little different. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this pick. I think a lot of Chargers fans, myself included, would really not be super pleased if they went with edge here. I think that the pick, as of right now, as of today, the pick is offensive line or bust at pick 13. But he's a very good player. And, sometimes you take best player. I think, Tom Telesco, to me, goes chalk a lot. He kind of goes every now and then if a player falls, he'll take the best player available. But I feel like a lot of times he goes what they need. They have their board, they have their needs, and they kind of just go chalk down there. Last year was a little different, obviously. Seeing them trade back up and get Kenneth Murray is very unlike what Telesco's done in the past. But I wouldn't hate it if I'm just being honest. Though I think it's got to be an offensive lineman there at 13, unless all hell breaks loose and, all 4 big tackles are off the board at 13, then maybe you scramble and you do, and look, and you get Dylan Radins at tackle in the second round, who's a very good tackle prospect. Don't know if he's going to start day one. He probably could. You like to see him develop a little bit or give it a little bit of time. And I know people hate hearing the development project after the Trey Pipkins pick, but, in this scenario that plays out. So, again, you get Trill Williams in here. We saw that in the last draft. There's Cameron Bynum going 200, who I love. Cam out of Cal. He was actually, fun fact here, the first guest, like real guest, and that's no disrespect to, first, I guess, player guest, I'll just leave it at that I ever had on my podcast when I started podcasting was Cameron Bynum. So he was just finished his freshman year going into his sophomore year at Cal, was, highly touted. He's from Centennial here in Corona, so he's a local LA kid. So that's kind of why we got him on the show. So yeah, just a little fun factor. So I want to see him be successful, and he had a very good career at Cal, and I think it's one of the most underrated corners in the nation, and absolutely is one of the most valued corner in the Pac-12. So yeah, overall, I like the draft. Again, I really want to see them go offensive line in this first round with pick 13. So Danny, I'll come back to you, but let's get to a Rams one now. All right, my man Jason. I like this draft overall. Uses the PFF mock. Obviously, again, you can see how different the gradings are and whatnot. But there you have Aziz falling all the way to pick 57. So we just saw him in this Chargers mock draft, and I'm not taking anything away from the Chargers fan that did that draft, because again, these simulators are way different in how they do it. But we saw Aziz go pick 13 overall. And now in this PFF one, falls all the way to pick 57 in the late second round. Very different. I think this is probably more likely, if I'm being honest. I think can't see him going in the top 20 personally, but then every now and then you do get a huge run on edge players. But this one makes more sense, and it fits a very big need for the Rams because Leonard Floyd is going to be gone. He's not going to be a Ram. You got to have someone else outside Aaron Donald that can rush the quarterback. Terrell Lewis, obviously a great talent. Can he stay on the field? That was his MO, why he fell in the draft, why the Rams landed him, and then he still wasn't able to stay healthy, unfortunately, for the Rams. If he can be healthy, having Terrell Lewis and now getting a guy like Azeez, they have a really good 1-2 punch alongside Aaron Donald. That's a really potent pass rush in Raheem Morris's system. So I like that pick a lot. The biggest pick on here, the two that I love the most, aside from Azeez, but the two I love the most, Quinn Miners, center, Wisconsin Whitewater, had the great Senior Bowl picture, just a bruiser. I personally think Blythe will be back. I do. I think they do get a deal done to re-sign him. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a 1 or 2 year deal, but either way, whether he's back or not, I like getting Miners in the draft where he can come in. Obviously he's a great talent. He showed that he can play with the big boys at the Senior Bowl, but anytime you jump from a small school, a small program to the NFL, there's always a little bit more of a learning curve, just a little bit more, because the game is just that much faster than what you did at the, at the smaller level, at the FCS level. So I would like to see them give a little time, and then they can, have some flexibility with however they did Blythe's contract, whether he comes in, they move to guard, whatnot, but you have depth. Anyway, whatever happens with Blythe, I love that pick either way. And the other one is Talanoa. I've said it so many times. Talanoa Hufanga, safety out of USC. Guy not being talked about a lot. Again, I probably have some biases just because we covered him, be watching every SC game, but dude is a playmaker on the back end. If the Rams are going to lose John Johnson like they think they are, obviously they have talent. They've spent a lot of draft capital on, Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller, and Terrell Burgess. You have Nick Scott there too, who's more of a special teamer, but can play on the back end. And then I think they will go after, if they lose John Johnson, I think they'll add a cheap veteran option in free agency. I talked about that on one of my last episodes, a guy like Will Parks or a Tayshaun Gibson from Chicago. So I think they'll get a cheap veteran. But either way, Hufanga is a guy that can play really anywhere. I know he's a safety, but he can play down in the box. He can line up at linebacker, which is a big need for the Rams. I mean, you could really have him be a Mark Barron type safety linebacker hybrid if needed. I think that's why I like him, is his versatility. He's got a nose for the football, plays, with his heart on the sleeve, tons of passion. He was, I think, the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was obviously awarded a lot within just the USC confines. So love that pick. If you're able to get him all the way at 143, I think that's a slam dunk. So, Larry Barn, you get some tackle depth there, guy that can develop. Marlon Williams, add another receiver at UCF. Overall, I like the draft, Jason. I like it. But yeah, there's just the first part you can see of how different these draft simulators are. So let's rock another. My man Sly, Think Blue 47. Appreciate you for throwing this to me. Look at this. So he used PFF as well. Look at this trade. Love it. This is a total Les Snead move right here. So if Tom Telesco for the Chargers, relatively, again, I'm not saying set in stone, but relatively goes chalk, Les Snead is the opposite. Les Snead is whatever position you think they need, he does the opposite. Last year's draft is a perfect example. What are the biggest needs? Offensive line, everyone thought. Linebacker. Those were like slam dunks. Absolutely had to have it. What do? They take a running back, then they take a receiver with their 2 second-round picks. Then they go 2 safeties, obviously not back-to-back. One was third, one was sixth. When they already had John Johnson, Taylor Rapp, I thought all along they would go safety at some point, but they go 2 safeties. They take another edge guy in Terrell Lewis. They finally take a guard in Tremaine Atram and a linebacker in the very final rounds. And the linebacker didn't even make the team. Obviously, Clay Johnston, great kid. I think he's still with Carolina. Ended up signing with them after getting waived by the Rams. But yeah, so it just shows Les Snead's thinking is like, it's very different than what we all probably think. So I love that trade, Sly. And look at that. You get a lot of pieces there. And in a draft where they had like 5 picks, all of a sudden you add 3. That's the draft capital we're talking about. So I love that move. And you only move back. What is that? I'm terrible at math. You move back 8 spots. Move back 8 spots, and you get a great edge player in Ronnie Perkins at Oklahoma. I mean, that is not a huge drop off from who they could have gotten at 57 by any means. Again, who knows if he'll be there, but in this situation, he was. I love that you have Hufanga as well. If Hufanga ends up in horns, I will be ecstatic. So Chaz Surratt, I actually have him in one of my mocks, which I'll get to. That you hit that need at inside backer, where they've just been thin at. They haven't had true. I'm not saying Chaz is necessarily a superstar, but they haven't had that high end talent since they let Corey Littleton walk, who ironically enough was a walk on free agent, and that's what they were able to get out of him. So you can find these gems anywhere in the draft. I think Chaz Surratt is someone that they could really turn into a star player in Raheem Morris's system out of North Carolina. You get some corner depth there. I personally think Troy Hill and Darius Williams will be back. Obviously, you have Jalen Ramsey, but get some more depth there. You had a receiver out of Western Michigan and Dwayne Eskridge. You get some center depth there, or center development there, depending again what happens with Blythe. If they let Blythe walk, if they move Corbett to center, and then you just get another piece there that can be versatile. So overall, I like this draft a lot. I love the trade there. Anytime you can add 3 picks to only move back 8 spots. Well done. Let's do a slow clap if you can hear. And you got a tackle and a receiver out of that trade back. So adding good depth there. So well done, Sly. I like it, my man. Good stuff. Okay, we'll do one of each more because we got a bunch. I'm sorry, guys. I'm skipping through some of these. Let's get Trevor here. So before I click the actual thing, Slater picked at 12. Rashawn Slater, the tackle, forced my hand at 13. So I'm glad he said that because that gives us a little bit of an idea of the board. So Trevor Black at T_Black59. Appreciate you jumping in here. So use the PFF mock draft. So Caleb Fairley, not one that a lot of people would think the Chargers take, because again, it's kind of like tackle, guard, or bust at 13. But because of the way the board fell, again, I would assume Elijah Vera Tucker was available, so that'd be my pick. We'll get to that in a minute. But I do not at all hate taking Caleb Fairley, who is, in my opinion, the best corner in the draft. And if he falls at 13, that's a great, great pick. It's kind of similar to like a Derwin James. Different circumstances. Derwin James had some injury history, which is kind of why he slid to 17 and fell in the Chargers' lap. But this would be a similar situation where, like, wow, this guy's still here at 13. Like, it'd be really hard to pass up. You're taking a big risk there by not taking an offensive lineman, like we know they all need. But a talent like that, especially with the age of Casey Hayward, the age of Chris Harris, who knows if either will be back, like I've been saying. You get a good young guy who will be a anchor on the back end. And then you have Derwin James. If they get a John Johnson or another star safety in free agency, that's a very dynamic back end that now, okay, you hope some guys slide to you and fall to you for the offensive line later on, but it's hard to pass it up. So while at the surface, people might freak out, I actually do not hate that pick at all. I don't think he'll be there at 13. I think he goes, maybe to Denver at 9, maybe the latest he goes. But yeah, if he's there, that's a great, that is not as bad as a pick as people may seem. That's why Pro Football Focus gave it an A, which their grading scale is, kind of silly, if I'm being honest. But this worked out because then you have Leon Eichenberg, tackle out of Notre Dame, fall to you in the second round. I haven't gotten a ton to film into Liam, but generally, offensive linemen out of Notre Dame tend to play pretty well in the NFL. They've had some good success with players on the offensive line going into the NFL and being successful. You have Mike McGlinchey, who's been fairly good with the 49ers. Obviously, you have Quentin Nelson with the Colts, who is arguably the best guard in the NFL, just nasty. So yeah, they've had a good track record. Leon Eichenberg, again, I'll just be honest, I haven't gotten a ton of tape, but I think he is a good player, and obviously the track record from that school and Brian Kelly, what he's able to do with the offensive line, I think speaks for itself. So you took a risk on taking Caleb Fairley, and you were rewarded by someone like this falling to you in the second round. So so far, I think this mock is pretty good, and it could kind of play out this way if Telesco, he doesn't love the guys that were taken before. Like you said, Slater was taken right before this. So, and then we get some depth on the defensive line with Nixon out of Iowa. We have some safety depth. We get a good edge in Quincy Roche. If he falls to 118, I like that too. I don't know why PFF gave that a C+. I think that's a very good pick, getting him that late in the draft. What is 118? The fourth round? So, yeah, Quincy Roche, I think, is a very solid edge rusher that if you get that late, you are ecstatic if you're a Chargers fans. You do add a running back depth with CJ Verdell. You get a tight end there, Trey McKitney, who's one of the better tight ends. I know this is not a I hate using talented because I know these kids are working their ass off, but this is not a uber talented tight end class after Kyle Pitts. Kind of a big drop off there, but you can still find guys that can be productive. So again, who knows what's going to happen with Hunter Henry, but I like Trey McKinney, had a solid Senior Bowl, and could come in and be a guy that, if Hunter Henry's back, he's a good depth piece that can come in and spot play. If Hunter Henry is gone, he's obviously going to be competing for a very large role, depending what the Chargers do in free agency. And that may actually change, obviously, how they draft. But as it stands, I like this pick a lot. So overall, I like this draft. Again, it's different. I mean, the only thing I don't love about it is only one offensive lineman taken. So even though you didn't do one in the first round, I would like to see at least 2 or 3 taken afterwards in later rounds, and you only did 1. That's probably my only jab at it. So I'm not mad at taking Fairley first because you are able to get Eichenberg, but I would like to see a little bit more added later on in the draft. So that's my only gripe on that. But Trevor, overall, I like it. A little different. Okay, let's get one more Rams one in here. Okay, here we go. Let's see who sent me this one. My man Anchor _Jack _not box. I'm glad none of you guys had crazy handles that I wouldn't be able to read. All right, brother. Let's see how we do this one. This one I like. You go center. Interesting tactic, Cotton. We'll see how that plays out. But Creed Humphrey, Quinn Miners. I talked about Miners a little bit when he was taken in a Chargers mock, but interesting. But I think you commented after someone said something. You said, "Hey, let him battle it out," and then you slide the other to guard, whoever wins the job. I don't hate that idea. I don't foresee it happening, if I'm just being real. But again, Les Snead is a wild drafter who does very different things than most GMs in the league. So yeah, you never know. But I would not see this as likely. But I don't hate it if it did happen. It would be interesting to see a team go center back to back. Dylan Moses, I like that linebacker pick. Obviously, linebacker is a big need. Also, not a huge talent pool of inside linebackers in this draft class, but Moses is one of the better ones. You get Trey McKitney again, like I was talking about, so you get that tight end. That was actually for the Chargers, but you get him for the Rams here. Just to add some depth there because they're probably going to lose Gerald Everett. You obviously have Bryson Hopkins, who was drafted last year, and we're going to see his role expand exponentially this season. But you need to add another depth piece because you lose one, add one, and he's a guy that can learn in that room. And then add another linebacker, Justin Rice, at Arkansas State. Decent talent there. See what he can become with a good linebacking coach there in LA, and see what they do. So interesting draft, my man. Interesting. 2 centers. Wouldn't that be something? But yeah, I would love to get Miners. I would love to get Humphrey. Just not sure if you're going to get both. But hey, had to give you a shout out there. So, all right. Thank you all for participating. So yeah, I went through rather quickly. Love seeing what everyone thinks. Love talking with the LA football fans and see kind of what you're getting into because, hey, you might know this stuff just as well as me. I hate when media people sit on this like pedestal and it's like, nope, you're wrong. Like this is how it's going to go. I hope I never portray that way. I do spend a lot of time going into this. So I don't think I necessarily know more than anyone, but I just spend more time on it maybe. So it's not as much of a guessing game. So, but we'll see. You be the judge because now let's get into mine. So like I said, I did all 3 different ones. Let's look at my Pro Football Focus one first, just because again, it's so very different how they rank players. And obviously when you're going through the simulator, it's just kind of stacking teams up because I didn't do every single pick for every team. I just did it for the Rams and Chargers. So let's start with the Pro Football Network. I don't know if I said Focus, but Pro Football Network, one I did with them. So with the Chargers, Elijah Vera Tucker. And a lot of these, I have some of the same players, so I won't talk too much on him. But Elijah Vera Tucker to me is the pick at 13. So versatile, like I said before. Played guard most of his time at USC, played tackle last season. I know it was a shortened 6-game season, but showed he was very capable of doing that. This was after opting out of the season. And then opting back in right before the season started when the Pac-12 announced that they would have a season after Thanksgiving. So didn't have a lot of time to learn the tackle position with his teammates and still played at a very high level. So just imagine what he can do when he gets into a pro room, with Frank Smith, the offensive line coach, who's a phenomenal coach that we had on the show, 2 weeks ago. If you want to check that out, little drop there. Frank Smith joined Frostee and I if you want to hear more about the Chargers offensive line, but I think he can turn this guy into a superstar. He can play tackle in the NFL. I know that a lot of people have him as guard. I think he can play tackle, but he can play guard. So it kind of depends what you do here. As you'll see with my draft, I took a tackle, Jackson Carman, out of Clemson in the 3rd round, who's a more prototypical tackle just with, huge size. He's a big guy, played, blindside tackle for Trevor Lawrence the last 2 years at Clemson. So he's your more prototypical tackle. So if that were the case, you can have him play left. You have Brian Berlaga at right. You have Elijah Vera Tucker at one of your guard positions. You're fortifying a pretty solid line there. And I'm not saying Carman would be a day one starter, but he can, trend into that because he has a side. He played at a big power program. He has some of the skill sets from what I've seen during games. Haven't broken down his tape fully, but if you get him in the 3rd round, that's pretty good, pretty highbrow stuff right there. So I went to Asante Samuel, corner in the 2nd. I've talked a lot. I really want to see a lot of offensive linemen taken, but I just didn't like who was sitting there in the 2nd. I thought I would have been reaching, and I think Samuel is a phenomenal corner who would come in again with a lot of question marks on that back end of who's going to be retained, who's not. The age is an issue. Get younger here at the Asante Samuel, and you're building things the right way. Hufanga, I took for the Chargers here. I know you have Derwin. Obviously, if they get John Johnson, this might be different. But as I mentioned earlier, Hufanga is so versatile. He can play in the box. He can play that free safety rover role. He's got a nose for the football. He's just a playmaker. I mean, I don't like comparing to greats right off the bat. But a lot of what he does reminds me of Troy Polamalu. I know it's a simple one because, they're both Polynesian. They both played at USC. But that style of game is what they bring. That's a style they bring. That's a style Hufanga brings to his game. And hopefully he's coming on the LA football pod here in the next couple of weeks so you guys can learn more about him. Oso Odigizua, had him on the pod a few weeks ago. Great guy at UCLA. Had his most productive year in only 6 games. His most productive season as a collegiate athlete, he did in 6 games. Had 30 tackles, 4 sacks as an interior defensive lineman. Has all the moves you need. Is very fit. I think he'd be a great depth piece for this Chargers team and could probably work his way into a starting rotation. He's that talented, I think. And he's moved his way up the draft boards. Probably a guy back in December, unless you're a Bruins fan, you probably had never heard of him. And he's working his way into like a 3rd or 4th, even high-end 2nd round grades now with a lot of people. So I don't know if he'll be there at 118 when all is said and done. But Osa Odigizua would love him. And then, later rounds, we're just adding depth here. Shaka Toney, get an edge guy. We get another receiver out of Trevon Grimes. Quentin Morris, tight end. Again, who knows what's going to happen with Hunter Henry. And then we add a guard for depth in Tommy Kramer. Got the Notre Dame pedigree. So that's why I'm going to throw my fishing lure out there because if it's a Notre Dame offensive lineman, I'm taking a stab at it. And if I get that in the 7th round, very bottom to last picks, I think that's a guy that can actually make my team and probably be a productive player that can spot start or, come in relief if needed. So that's my Chargers PFN mock. Let's go to the Rams. So I'll just go back and forth. You guys still with me? How are we doing on time here? Okay. I didn't want to go like an hour and a half on this because I don't know how much you would be interested. Maybe you guys get bored. We'll see. Let me know. Let me know after the show if you enjoyed this or if you hated it. I want to know. Just to see if it was something actually that enjoyable and we'll do it again, or if it was just, too much of me rambling and you'd rather do something else. So Rams now. I went edge 57. Jordan Smith is a really talented guy. Started his college career at Florida, had some off the field issues, ended up transferring to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, a great program that was resurrected. But he's got a lot of talent, man. I mean, this is a guy that if he played his whole career at Florida with the intangibles he has, the size, the speed, we could be talking about an early 2nd, late 1st round pick here. I mean, you can say with a lot of guys, circumstance means everything in life. But if you can get a guy like this, reminds me of similar to getting Terrell Lewis so late last year, but doesn't really have the injury history. Win-win, right? So yeah, Jordan Smith, you add to that room. If there is question marks, we got to get someone to replace Leonard Ford. Got to get someone to take the pressure off Aaron Donald. Not saying Smith would be that day one, but he can work into that role. Terrell Lewis, I think it's going to be a beast if healthy, but if he's not, George Smith steps right in. George Smith can also play coverage, very versatile. He can, drop back. He's good against the run, so he's not just an edge rusher. So I like Smith a lot. I think it's a good pick. I probably not a lot of people know, but get to know his name. Get to know his name. It's going to be rising up the boards. Braden Christensen, offensive tackle out of BYU, was charged with protecting great quarterback Zach Wilson, who will be probably a top 10 pick this year. So yeah, I mean, he's a guy that has some talent. He's probably going to be a little older, but that means he's a little more ready, I guess, for the NFL wear and tear in the body, and he's kind of fully grown. So you add a tackle depth because, Whitworth, he's not getting any younger. Got a year or two left. Havenstein, there's a lot of question marks there. Obviously, you have David Edwards and Bobby Evans who can play tackle, but since they've been drafted, they've both been playing in guard. I know Evans finished last year at tackle, but Evans did play some guard this year. Edwards played guard the entire season. So you could maybe slide them back out, but I think it's smart to just get a tackle here that you can literally draft from the second. He can sit the entire season behind Whitworth, learn from one of the best, and then come into a role next season if Whitworth does retire, or if not, whether what happens with Havenstein. But anyway, a lot of options there, but I like the pick when Braden Christensen. Cameron McGrone is another very talented linebacker, inside backer that the Rams need so desperately. He's your prototypical, can go side to sideline, can do it all. Kind of reminds me a little bit of what Corey Littleton could do. Has that playmaking ability from the backer position. Obviously had a little bit of a downer this year, but that's just because everyone at Michigan did. Michigan just had a very odd season. But we saw him as a redshirt freshman really take the starting role, just took it over, never gave it back. So I love that tenacity, and I think he can bring a lot of skill to this Rams linebacking core that needs that. That's exactly what they need. You add corner depth with Keith Taylor, who's kind of the unsung. Washington is kind of the unsung cornerback university there. Seems to be pumping out corners every year. So Keith Taylor is the next product to come out. Marlon Williams, just get another receiver, add some depth there. And then Brennan James, add another tackle. Again, just add depth to this offensive line, who I am higher on than most. They did finish third, according to Pro Football Focus this season, had high rankings with ESPN's ranking system as well. I wanted to see that continuity kept, but it doesn't hurt adding depth, especially when we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Blythe and then Andrew Whitworth, a year or two away from retirement. So, all right. So there's my Rams mock draft with PFN. Let's go into the Draft Network. So this one, just because the way it separates, we'll go, because I did all these drafts together. I didn't do like a Rams one separate, Chargers one separate. I selected for both the Rams and Chargers in each draft in each simulator. So it was happening in real time. So let's do that in real time here. This is the Draft Network. Tucker, again, like I said, Elijah Vera Tucker, ABT, he's my guy for the Chargers. I coupled that by taking another tackle in the second. Dylan Radins, I think this would be a slam dunk if they can do it. Like I said, ABT can play both tackle or inside. Radins can play tackle. You can move him inside if you need to, but I don't think you want to. I think you like him at tackle. So yeah, if you have Radins and AVT lining up together, you're pretty happy about that Chargers offensive line. We got to the Rams second round pick, took edge Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma. Saw him in other mock drafts, I believe we showed from some of our listeners. I like the pick there. You get a position of need to replace Leonard Floyd. So back to the Chargers for 2 picks. 77, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not really a need to take a receiver here. Looks like, from what I can tell, Mike Williams will be kept, will be paid $15 million, whether you like it or not. He is a very good piece to this offense. May just be a little overpaid for what the production he gave, but he is very important for what they want to do. So you can't be mad at that if they can afford it. Obviously, you have Keenan Allen, the All-Pro, and then we saw a bunch of unsung heroes step up, but we don't have that true third guy still. I think even with these guys that played so well, they needed to step up. They were able to get the deep ball going. None of them, I think, are going to be, even with, KJ Hill and Joe Reed, who were drafted last year. After seeing their production this year, or lack thereof, it's hard to see them really stepping up to be a number 3 receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown could be a number 2 receiver for most teams. He would be a fantastic number 3 receiver for Justin Herbert. So not really a need, but if he slips to this spot and the Chargers have a chance to take him, you take him because you add as much weapons as you can to Justin Herbert's arsenal. And you already took 2 offensive linemen in the first and second round. Now you can add a weapon to Justin Herbert. You do it 100 times out of 100 times. Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, some bias for me because I covered SC, but I think he's fantastic. He was like the number 2 overall recruit in the nation back in, coming out of high school. So that just shows, and he had a very good career with SC with some quarterback I don't want to say turmoil, but, going from JT Daniels to Keaton Slovis, having to make that transition. And he had a very good career there. So then at 97, we get Patrick Jones. We get an edge. So you got Uchenna Nwosu, you get Patrick Jones, who kind of up and down flavor about him. I'm going to take a little drink. My voice is getting a little dry and scratchy. Got a little seltzer going on today. So, oh man, when you do these shows by yourself, it really takes a toll on the old, on the throat. Just dries you out. You almost need that guy or gal to bounce things off where you can get a little break. So yeah, I apologize. I think my voice has changed as we've gone on, but Patrick Jones, very different temperatures on him, depending who you talk to, but the talent's there. We saw him get that 1 sack in the Senior Bowl game, had not a great Senior Bowl week of practices. But he shows up pretty good on tape for Pitt. He's a good talent. If you get him this late in the draft, you take it. You're not taking him too early. This isn't a reach. I think this is a good spot for him. So he'd be a great addition to this Chargers unit. If you're able to get him. 101 for the Rams. This is my favorite pick of this whole draft. I may have reached a little bit for him in this simulator, not in what I think he is. I think he's going to be a second-round pick, personally. If he's at 101, I'll be shocked. I really will. I do not see him sitting there at 101. I think Demetri Felton will be a second-round pick. I'm saying it. It's on the record. But in this scenario, he was there. He was actually rated farther. And I was shocked because I just do not think that's realistic. Because this guy's a dynamic playmaker in today's NFL. That is what you need. It's a copycat league. Everyone wants to copy the Chiefs. Everyone wants to copy now the Buccaneers, what they were able to do. You get a pass rush, a good defensive line pass rush. You have a good quarterback, and you need playmakers. And Demetri Felton is a playmaker who you just get the ball in his hands and he make things happen. So if he joins his Rams team, a lot of people are probably thinking, it's not really a need for the Rams. They have much of their needs after only taking, 1 pick, taking an edge. What about linebacker? What about blah, 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 blah. A lot of people will see Felton and they'll, immediately think of Tavon Austin, who the Rams took in the first round, a few years back and really never panned out. And because they're similar style players coming in, being that playmaker mold. I get it. They do have similar skill sets. Demetri Felton's bigger, 5'10". He's going to be over 200 pounds. I would say the combine, that's not happening, but for the draft. So they're similar. I just think Felton has showstopper written all over him. And, part of it could be Tavon Austin just wasn't used correctly, coming to a very stagnant offense that the Rams had when he was drafted. Part of it was maybe some of his own personal stuff. We've had Felton on the show twice. I think he's a fantastic kid. Loves the game. Great work ethic. His teammates love him. He played running back this year for the Bruins. He went to the Senior Bowl as a receiver. Played receiver prior with the Bruins. He really can do it all. So I know the Rams are set. So we think at running back with, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, but Felton can be that guy that can be in the backfield if needed. If they want to change things up, he can be in the slot. He can be on the outside. He can really be anywhere. And he's going to add a dynamic to this Rams offense with Matthew Stafford. It is exciting. Even if they get a receiver in free agency, I would still like to see the Rams take Demetri Felton. That's how high I am on this kid. But if they're going to do it in real life, I think it's going to have to be at pick 57. So I don't know how many people feel about that. I don't know if fans are feeling good about taking a playmaker at 57 when they have other needs. But if they want him, I do not think he will be there at 101. Maybe he will. I don't see it. Rams, I do have a nice, right here, skip 1 pick, and they got pick 103. I went Dante Smith. So they get their tackle out of East Carolina, developmental guy, big body dude, very physical, very athletic. But again, when you take a tackle in this draft, it's great for the player because they can come in, they can be behind Havenstein currently, quote unquote, be behind Havenstein and Andrew Whitworth, take you to learn. If injuries happen, they can step in, but they're not like being drafted to start right away. So you get a good pick there. Hufanga, I've talked about him a ton. Chargers come at 118, slam dunk pick. Even if they get John Johnson, I love the pick just because of how versatile he is, especially this late in the game. Charles Snowden next for the Rams. You get that linebacker, a guy that, played well at Virginia. They could turn him into what they want. But you add depth to that room. That is a need. Linebacker is a definite need. Chargers add some corner depth there out of LSU. Then we get some interior line depth after already taking, two people in the, first and second round. They add another one at 200. They add another tackle. Brandon James, I talked about him recently at 206. So you go 4 offensive linemen here for the Chargers in this draft. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yeah. Elijah Tucker and Dylan Reynolds. And then you get Jackson and James. 4 offensive linemen out of all their picks. I would not be mad at it. Let me know. Would you hate that? Would that be upsetting? Again, if they add 3 people in free agency, this is obviously not going to happen. But as it sits, I would not be upset at all if they take 4 offensive linemen in this draft. And I think those are 4 very good ones. Drake Jackson out of Kentucky, Brandon James out of Nebraska. So yeah, not mad at all about that. Rams add a corner depth out of Oregon. And then you get finishing the draft with an edge player for the Chargers. So you get another edge, just adding some depth there. And in the Rams, like I said, in this scenario, Cameron Bynum, I do not see going that late. He would not. So this is the one I was talking about where he would not have been drafted had I not taken him. I don't see that. Bynum is going to go way earlier than pick 247. So I love the Draft Network. I think their design is great. It's very easy to use. I think their rankings are maybe more far off than others. I don't see Felton going at 101, and I do not see Cameron Bynum going at 247. What I have noticed with the Draft Network, and this is nothing against them, but most of those guys who do phenomenal work, I mean, they work their asses off. So this is not a knock at them, but most of them are all East Coast guys, so they tend to have less, what's the word I'm looking for? Less love, I guess, for Pac-12 players. That's just something I've noticed. Not saying it's fact. I could be wrong on that, but they seem to rate Pac-12 players a little less just because I think they see a lot more SEC, a lot more ACC, a lot more, Big East or whatever before it was defunct. So just something I've noticed because there's no way Cam Bynum's going 247. He's going earlier than that. Big Felton's going way earlier than that. So, all right, let's wrap it up with this. Sorry about that. Let's wrap it up with Pro Football Focus. Again, way different rankings with Pro Football Focus. Slater fell to the Chargers at 13. I'm going to get intimate here for this one because my voice is starting to kill me. Let's be real, guys. The throat is starting to seize up. And we're pushing close to an hour here, so I'll wrap this up. Thank you. This is the LA Football Podcast. Make sure to tune in. You know what? Before we get into this final draft, before we get into the final one, I got to talk about eBay real quick. My last sponsor for the show, because a lot of you might be sneakerheads. I'm not a huge sneakerhead, but maybe you are. And I don't know if you knew this, but eBay is the perfect place to find exactly what you're looking for. It is the original sneaker marketplace. Don't know if you knew that, but it is. eBay's authenticity guarantees your sneakers are meticulously inspected by independent professional authenticators. It also protects sellers with a verified return process. So if you're a sneaker seller out there, eBay has eliminated selling fees on sneakers $100 or more, making it free to sell or flip your collection. So you go to ebay.com/sneakers. You find that pair you're looking for. Say they're a pair of Jordans. I don't even know what do they go for nowadays? 150? I don't even know. I've never owned a pair of Jordans. I don't think I could rock them. More of a Vans Converse guy. But let's say they're 150. You buy them. You flip them for 200. You're not paying any fees. That's straight $50 profit. ebay.com/sneakers. That's ebay.com/sneakers. The world's best destination for discovering great value and unique selection. All right. Big thanks to eBay. So let's go ahead and get into this final mock draft here. We'll roll through it kind of quickly, but it is a little different because PFF is very different there too. So Rashawn Slater fell to the Chargers at 13. Slam dunk here. I don't need to talk to him a lot because you guys know who he is, how good he is. I still would, even if Slater's available, I would be totally 100% cool with taking Elijah Vera Tucker over him. That's how big I am on him. But I want to change it up a little bit, and I do like Rashawn Slater a lot, and he'll be a true tackle. Could be, from day one. Landon Dickinson, talked about him before, a little bit of injury history, but a great pick in the second round, and could be a very, very good center if he stays healthy for the long term. With the Chargers, could probably start day one. Anytime you get these offensive linemen from these big time schools, you think they can start day one just because of the competition they went against. Landon Dickinson, I think, is one of those guys. Rams with their first pick, they go edge. Peyton Turner, I think I had him going edge in, I think, both other mock drafts, just different players. Different players fell, but I think edge is a good pick for them at PIP 57. I think it fits good with what they need, and with the value circulating that pick, I think that's the best position or value that they're going to get. Osa Odighizuwa, I already had another mock, so I don't need to talk about him. Going to the Chargers there at 77. Cameron Sample, another edge, out of Tulane. Have any of you guys been to Tulane? I went to Tulane campus 3 or 4 years ago. No, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, with my then girlfriend, now wife. We went to New Orleans, obviously, for other stuff, but we were staying right by Tulane, so we were like, oh, let's just take a jaunt through campus. It's a beautiful campus. All those Southern schools are beautiful. So much history. A lot of schools in general. USC obviously is gorgeous. UCLA is gorgeous, but the Southern schools, something about the layout of them, the trees on campus. Tulane. If you ever go to New Orleans, just do a little walk through Tulane. Their stadium there is kind of cool too. Right on campus. Really nice stadium built just a few years ago, brand new. Anyway, I digress. Cameron Sample, good player there for the edge for the Chargers to come in behind Uchenna Nwosu, be a depth guy, and maybe play and spot start with how we know injuries unfortunately stack up for this Chargers team. 101, I got Dimitri again. Again, undervalued. He's not going to be there at 101, but I'm obviously going to take him if he is. And PFS has him listed as a running back, whereas the Draft Network had him listed at receiver. Obviously, the guy can play anywhere on the field you line him up. He can do it all. Can you guys tell I'm excited about him? I hope you can. We'll try to get him on the show again right before the draft. He's an awesome guy. If you haven't listened, LAFBnetwork.com, go to the LA Football Podcast, search back, or just search Dimitri Felton in the search bar. You'll find our episode or two with Felt. Awesome kid. I was so stoked to see his stock rise at the Senior Bowl because I've been watching him for 3 years, knowing how good he was, really under the radar. And all of a sudden he goes to the Senior Bowl, and he's everyone all of a sudden is like, yeah, he was the star of the Senior Bowl. He can do this, that, and that. But yeah, we know he could. So props to you, Felt. You're getting the respect you deserve, and I think you're going to be a second-round pick. But hey, in this draft, 101, we will take it. Rams then get Chaz Surratt. Talked about him earlier. Linebacker from North Carolina. Build him up out of that room. I like the pick. Quinn Miners goes to the Chargers. Another great pick. I love Quinn. This kid's gonna be great. Here's a few different players now we can get to. So Sean Wade, corner at Ohio State, played at a big time program. Play with Jordan Fuller, who's on the back end there. So there's some chemistry there, some history there. So I think he's a good depth piece to add to the Rams, and could be one of those guys like Jordan Fuller that surprises you. And, he's drafted with not a lot of expectations, drafted to be a depth guy, and ends up through training camp, turning heads and ends up being a day one starter like Jordan Fuller was. Never know. Sean Wade, Ohio State does produce a lot of good corners as well. Pick 160 for the Chargers. I know running back isn't necessarily a need. I've talked about them potentially getting a running back in free agency just as they need kind of a bruising back, because they have Austin Eckler, who's your flash, your change of pace, can do it all guy, does have more power than people give him credit for, but he's not a guy on 4th and 1 you want to necessarily always line up. Joshua Kelly, they took last year. I've talked a lot about my love for Joshua Kelly, but his production did fall off down the stretch. Hopefully we'll see that, reinvigorated with, Joe Lombardi as OC now with Brandon Staley. We'll see a new Joshua Kelly, because I think he is really good. Justin Jackson, I think is great. He just has some injury concerns, can never really be on the field for 16 games. Chuba Hubbard, if he is here at 160, even with that depth, everything I just said about that, you run to the draft board, or you run to the phone or whatever, however they're going to be doing it this year, if it's going to be virtual or not. I don't know if people remember how good Chuba Hubbard has been at Oklahoma State. As a sophomore, so 2 years ago, he rushed for over 2,000 yards in the Big 12. I know the Big 12 isn't known for defense, but anytime a running back rushes for over 2,000 yards, that's pretty special. Him and Barry Sanders are one of the few to do it out Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard is a special talent. If he's there at 160, you add to that room. There's going to be injuries, especially at running back position. I hate to say it. You don't root for it, definitely not. But you have a guy like that, and he could turn some heads and be a great pick. And, you have all these picks. This is an odd year for the Chargers. You have a lot of picks. Usually they're pretty chalk, just, 1 through 7. He's a good guy to get. So 200, Austin Watkins, add a receiver, just kind of a depth piece to add to that room. Brady Breeze, add another safety. Again, depending on what they do in free agency. I had another draft, some Teku Fungo, who I like a lot better. But Brady Breeze out of Oregon is a guy that can come in and at least be a special teamer and be a guy that's there in case of injuries. Cole Von Lannon for the Rams at 210. Add that tackle depth. Same scenario as what I said in the last mocks. He can sit behind Whitworth and Havenstein. Comes from Wisconsin, which is another great college for tackles for offensive linemen. David Edwards is from Wisconsin. We've seen how he's been able to play well after being a 5th-round pick for the Rams and was a starter all season long. So guys, that you get that late from these schools that produce really good talent from certain positions. Notre Dame, Wisconsin are two of the best at offensive line. You take a guy like that, you can come have developed for a year and then step in. Reminds me a lot of what David Edwards did. So he could definitely be a starter, whether it's at tackle or guard moving forward. Quentin Morris, add a tight end. Again, who knows what's going to happen with the Chargers tight end situation with Hunt and Henry. You get a guy from Bowling Green that can come in and play or at least be a depth piece either way. And with the final pick in this mock draft episode, my voice is shot. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I can't see. Okay, no, now we're being dramatic. But at 251, Trey Hill, center out of Georgia for the Rams. Just add more depth to that offensive line unit because a lot's going to be changing in the coming years. If a lot doesn't change this year, a lot's going to be changing next year. So you add a guy that can come in, learn, be with the new offensive line coach from Stanford. If it's a guy he likes, and they can really kind of just grow together and grow this offensive line. So that late in the draft, you're adding guys that you hope make the roster and then can grow within the system. That's kind of like when they took Tremaine Atcham last year late in the draft, and they really liked him and liked his development already. Here's a guy, Trey Hill, they can bring in, just, come in, get acclimated to the NFL, take your time, learn, and maybe in 2 years, he'll be a starter. So there you have it. There you have it. There is my mock drafts, plural, alongside your mock drafts. There were a lot of similarities, I thought. There were a lot of similarities with how you guys did stuff and how I did them. I think we all are in agreement that the Chargers need to go offensive line heavy. I love to see them go, 1 and 2, and then add maybe a third guy later on in the draft. If they don't go 1 and 2, at least add 2 more after that. Certainly you got to go 1, whether it's first or second, you got to take a offensive lineman at that point. I think for the Rams, edge, linebacker, the 2 positions to need, but I think we know Les Snead he doesn't go by the book. Les Snead's going to do what Les Snead wants to do, for better or worse. Usually it's been for the better, considering they've been a playoff team 3 of the last 4 years with the Super Bowl. So lots going to happen. Lots going to change in a week when free agency opens up. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know. We'll do it again after free agency. If you hated it, let me know. If it was just boring and not fun, I want to know so we don't do it again. Again, obviously, if we do it again, I'm going to do it with Frostee, which will add a nice other level and let me be able to take a breath and a break. But yeah, I had fun. I love talking draft. I love talking football. So thank you all for tuning in. This is the LA Football Podcast. Find us anywhere you listen. We are everywhere you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. Anywhere you listen, we are. Video on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all at LAFB Network. If you're listening to this show and you want to watch it, head to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel at LAFB Network. We're just starting to really provide more video content. I had a meeting today with some video creators that are going to help with our look and really make it look a lot more even professional and better. Super excited about it. So big things coming. So make sure to head to the LAFB Network on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow that platform. And you get to see what we look like, see some highlights and stuff. You can see the mock drafts in person. So Hope you all enjoyed it. My name is Ryan Dyrud. As you know, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Hit me up. Let's talk. Thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe to the show. We'll talk to you all here in a few days. Next week, Frostee will be back in studio with me, studio via Zoom. But you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you all in a few days.